And welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back once more. And, Victory Road is coming up quite quick on us. It is not far away right now. And they have announced quite a few matches for the show. So I wanted to come on and have a look through, have a bit of a discussion. We didn't really talk too much about Moose and Nemeth, though I think I've mentioned Moose and Nemeth, but obviously that's the big match that, is the, standout match. Obviously the world title match is the standout match of any pay-per-view or whatever you want to call them. That's coming up, but it's one of those things that they haven't had a long time really to put this show together, and at some point, sometimes, as I said, sometimes it feels like, well, there might just be a little bit of too much with literally a pay-per-view every month. Sometimes you're getting these pay-per-views or whatever turned around in like 2 weeks or whatever it is. But the last card with Josh Alexander and Nick Nemeth as the main event, that felt like gangbusters. That felt like that should have been the main event of Bound for Glory. Like, this main event also feels like it should be like the main event of Bound for Glory. These main events feel like they could main event Slammiversary or Bound for Glory. They don't feel like, oh, this is just a filler match or whatever. This is just some guy versus some guy or whatever. The champion's probably going to retain. In this case, you probably still know the champions are going to retain or whatever, but just in due to the fact that the titles just changed or whatever and things like that. But I think that there, isn't that feeling of like, oh, he's just facing somebody else that's, a side contender that doesn't really matter. I guess we're going to talk mostly right now about Nick Nemeth versus Moose, since I've already been talking about it. But that's a definitely big match. It sort of makes me wonder and feel like, well, I want to know where they're going to Bound for Glory. Now, I kind of almost feel like maybe potentially that, there's been a rumor that Cody Rhodes is coming into TNA, and going to do something. I don't know about that. That sounds somewhat interesting, but if you're going to have him come into TNA, it's like, well, what else can you get him to do besides challenge for the world title? But he's a babyface, so it's going to be really hard for him to challenge for the championship. Plus, he's already the WWE champion, so it's like, well, what's going on there? Unless you're going to have somebody fight him for the WWE championship on a TNA pay-per-view, I don't know. That doesn't sound like too bad of an idea, honestly, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't see where it can fit in. Not that it can't, but it's just sort of like the roster is sort of very thin, but also very sort of dense in many ways. Like, they have a lot of great talent. I kind of want to talk about Jake Something right now because he just pulled off a great heel turn this week on TNA Impact. I think that was great. I can't wait to see more from him now, because I was saying before in my video that I did about him, he's got something, no pun intended, but he's got something. He's got a lot of potential, but I just felt like his babyface character had kind of gotten stale, and it just kind of wasn't really resonating that well, and that, so it felt like, man, maybe just time for a change, try something else, go in a different direction. And even if you just be like, okay, well, I'm going to be a bit more aggressive out there and whatnot, that naturally kind of makes it sort of heel-ish, which is fine, 100% fine, but still, like realistically, you just need to go down that path. If you're already kind of going down that path, you're going to get those reactions. So you might as well try to get those reactions rather than being like, oh, I'm getting booed, but I'm meant to be the baby face here and there and whatnot. So might as well try to get heat and whatnot. And again, as I say, it's so much easier to get, heat and to be hated than to be beloved by the audience. So I can't wait to see it. I don't really know what to expect from it in some ways, but I like to see where that goes, and I think this will suit him well for a short period of time, maybe a year or two, whatever it is. We don't know, but again, maybe even longer. Who knows? Moose has been a heel for a long time, and that suits him very well, and whatnot. So yeah, he could find himself in the same position of just being suited to that role more so, being a big monster of a man, and he could have some potential now that he is a heel to being one of the next top guys. Absolutely. Like I said, he just needed to probably freshen things up, or to, like, if he can get in that singles division and start getting, out there and start, getting wins over some big superstars, he could be one of the next top guys potentially. But it's really tough because there is a lot of top competition in Moose and Josh Alexander. So, but still he could be up there, certainly, as I say. So, you still got to keep your eye on that and see if he can break through and get his chance, because maybe a pay-per-view here or there, and you can't have Moose and Josh Alexander on every pay-per-view, and you need other stars to carry the load, and sometimes it feels like there's too many heels, but when you have a babyface world champion, you need as many heels as what you get. And yes, it's not good just to feed Jake something straight to Nick Nemeth or whatever. Plus, again, is Nick Nemeth going to hold on to that title forever? No, obviously not. But again, you still need these things to work together. You still need these guys to be built and, into the future. They're not going to just go away next year or whatever else it is. Or even if they are, it's like, well, we did our best with what we had at the time to try to build this person into a superstar or into our draw of, for our company. And that's all it's all about. But anyway, I do see, as I said, Nick Nemeth probably retaining here against Moose. I don't know. It feels like them doing a 1-to-1, like one win to Moose and one win to Nick Nemeth, that this won't be the final match between them. But I don't know. I don't feel like you can run it back at Bound for Glory. So this has got to really set up something fairly quickly after this. And I don't know. That's going to be hard to figure out what you're going to do there, with Nick Nemeth and Moose, to finalize their feud or whatever for a little while at least, or give Moose something else to work with. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, it sort of sucks, but certainly it's not a contender that just feels like it's plucked sort of out of the tag team division or out of somewhere in the mid card or whatever else it is. And it's nice to give some of those guys a chance sometimes, but it's like, this guy is a main event guy and has been a main event guy for quite a while. So yeah, that is there. Josh Alexander versus Joe Hendry. I'm really flipping the coin with this one, and I don't really know where this is going, because it feels like Joe Hendry has gotten over to the nth degree. And I almost feel like this can't be their last match either. Like, it doesn't make much sense right here, right now, for this feud to end. But to me, I feel like Joe's going to win, but just because people want to see him at the top level. But it's like, well, if you're seeing Joe Hendry being the number one guy in the future or down the road or whatever else it is, you need to heel for him to beat. And as I said before, maybe you could do that with Nick Nemeth. You could turn him heel. He has this whole relationship with JBL thing going on. You could turn him heel with that, and whatnot. So I don't know. I just don't know what you're going to do with that. It's like, I don't want Josh Alexander, one of the top guys that's, been in this company, to be forgotten about. I obviously don't think he will be, but it's just like being passed over like this is sort of is at this point in time is a little bit sucky, but then again, you can bring him back later. So, but it's just, how do you work that? How do you put other obstacles in his path, to make it seem like there's something there? I don't know. But it's so hard for me to think that Joe Hendry won't win. But it's like, well, yeah, I don't know. Very tough for me to see that Alexander should win here. I don't know. Very tough. Wentz versus Bailey. Wentz is winning this one. I can feel that. That feels like that's fairly obvious to me, at least mostly. Um, I thought that Bailey wouldn't have lost it, but Wentz is just definitely not losing this belt now. It's just doesn't make any sense at all for him to lose it. Um, I don't know what this is sort of setting up. It almost feels like there's going to be something set up between him and Dez or Wesley at Bound for Glory, maybe. I don't know. That sounds interesting, but I don't know. Like, I feel like Wes is like, in WWE and doing his own thing, so he doesn't really need to, like, it almost feels like he's lowering himself and that to come back to TNA in his own mind. Like, I don't know. Obviously not, but still, it seems a little like, well, why are you doing that for? Like, that doesn't make no sense. So he should be going after things that, feel like, oh, well, I'm progressing, not just going back to the old days or whatever, if that's what he really wants to do. I think, it was a short-lived thing that perhaps could have been extended a little longer, but whatever, is what it is. The ABC versus the system. I kind of feel like this system reboot thing is kind of interesting, and that's where I was feeling like with Moose potentially maybe winning back the title. Like, I don't know, I wouldn't be against it, but I don't really feel like it makes any kind of sense. Like, it's like, you take the title off of Nemeth just to put it back on Moose. It doesn't really make much sense. Same thing here with the ABC. It feels like you've just taken it off the system and now you're going to put it back on them. That doesn't make any sense. Like, realistically, it sucks in that tag team division too, because like there's hardly anyone in that tag team division for them to face. So it's like, well, not hot potatoing, but sort of toing and froing the titles is kind of the best thing to do sometimes when you haven't got anything else really to work with. Though the good hands are there, but they've no real big team, and they need a real big run for to get to those titles. So, and they really haven't done that. So, but yeah. The Militia versus Spitfire. Now, we heard that Alicia is injured and under the concussion protocol, so we don't know whether she's actually going to be able to compete here, but apparently she will get a replacement if she's unable to at the time, so we'll have to keep our eye on that one. But anyway, this one, again, feels the same way to a small degree, but it also feels a little shit because it's like, well, Spitfire have kind of put this stipulation out there to say, hey, if we don't win, that's it for us. We'll break up as a team. And if you're, like I said before, if you're going to keep this women's tag team division thing going, I feel like either need more teams or you need to keep the teams that you have. So you're not going to break up a team just to be like, you know, let's go and do this other thing or whatever. But it's obviously like, again, almost at the wrong point in some ways. Kent feels like this is a Bound for Glory rematch, not a just like Victory Road rematch. It's like, well, what are you going to do at Bound for Glory then? Like, you know. So that's what I mean. You've got to look at these matches when you're thinking about, okay, well, this is all building towards Bound for Glory. Who's going to challenge Nick Nemeth for the world title? And if you're looking at this card, it has to be Alexander. Like, that's the only like top heel that's on this roster that, you know, could even face Nick Nemeth. Now, if it's from outside of the roster, then you've got a bit more depth. You could even put Hammerstone in there. You could put a couple other wrestlers in there. So I don't know. That is something, I guess. But still, like, it doesn't make much sense. Like, again, if you're going to do something with Nemeth, I feel like you've got to turn him heel so that he can work with Hendry at Bound for Glory or something else. So you're always looking at these matches. Like, maybe the ABC and the system, like, I don't want to say matches should go to a no contest and things like that or whatever. But it almost feels like that match should also be happening at Bound for Glory. It's like, again, there aren't that many other teams on the roster, so it's like, well, who are they going to face? So, like, in the X division, it's not like there's that many people either for Wentz to face, but, you know, there are a few people kind of there, so I don't know. But yeah, you can continue to see these little things that, you know, are there, and I don't know, kind of feel like they're working or not working or making sense to where you think you're trying to go. But, you know, at the end of the day, you're just like looking at things and saying, well, they've got to work with what they've got, and, you know, potentially again, there's some stuff there with WWE doing some stuff. So got to think about that. But I keep thinking that potentially or whatever that you know, this whole thing is like, again, especially with the Knockouts tag team titles, is it's like, well, it's almost time to just retire those titles and do something else. Just have some sort of, you know, singles women's mid card or whatever title that's a little bit less than the Knockouts proper title, but it gives a platform to young and upcoming wrestlers, and having the difference in like styles, whereas like singles and tags, I don't know, I don't see that as a big positive that much. You know, realistically, yes, tag team wrestling is a thing, but I don't know. I feel like it's fine to definitely have a female tag team division, but they definitely just don't have enough teams involved. So I feel like, you know, you need to figure that out. And it feels like the upper card of the Knockouts is very thin. So it's like, well, you also need to give opponents to Jordan. And even though Marsha has already lost to Jordan, that was over a year ago and whatnot, people kind of still want to see it and kind of want to see a rematch. Alicia kind of isn't really on that level, but she's still a great heel. And I think people would like to see them like wrestle each other. You know, they've just introduced this new young knockout, Heather Reckless, to their roster. It also seems like they're debuting a Japanese knockout wrestler. It might be Io Sky. Some people are saying it's Io Sky. Or Xia Li, is it? Sorry. I think it's Xia Li, actually. Yeah. So there we go. Yeah, they're adding to that roster. Even if that's temporary, I'm not worried. But still, it's like, well, that's not going to, you know, to settle the situation. They just need way more wrestlers and way more availability of wrestlers. Um, you know, so having tag teams really actually hurts the division overall. Um, you know, with having more people involved in things, you should just be telling these stories that revolve around the knockouts title itself, or revolve around building yourself up to being on that level at some point, or and giving some sort of accolade that relates to being the top woman in the division, not just some accolade that doesn't really relate to the same division. Like when you're a tag wrestler, your bread and butter is tag team wrestling. It's a different kettle of fish to wrestling a singles style, whatever. So, and I think like if you had somebody like I think the Coven was a good team, and I think there've been a few good teams and whatnot. But I think if you had somebody like Taylor Wilde, you know, just managing Kylan King, um, and they sort of have this relationship, alliance, whatever else it is, but it seems like Kylan was kind of using Taylor in some ways just to further her own, career and whatnot. And in the end, she betrayed, you know, Taylor and then tried to strike it out on her own. That would have been a better story of, just, these two people have a relationship and they're working together, or they're in a unison of some sort. That makes these unisons or whatever else it is more special and more unique. It takes away from these unisons and whatnot of these teams when it's like, here's somebody plus their manager. Well, why does this person have a manager or whatever else, or whatnot, a valet or whatever else that you want to call it, along with them? They could just be a tag team, like. But yeah, like it's like I definitely think like certain people um on that roster, again, just like they need to add so many. But it's also like, well, they also just need to find more space for them as well. And like that's what something that I talked about before, with them becoming more efficient in like being able to showcase as many people as possible in some ways. um we talked a bit about Giselle Shaw. Looks like she probably leaving next week or whatever else it is, so she won't be at the next pay-per-view. So I believe next week's her last TNA appearance, and she's going up against the newcomer Heather Reckless. So we obviously know how that's going without even like reading the spoilers. But that's a big, you know, not push, but that's a big win, and that can lead to a big push, down the road. But it sort of doesn't make much sense since they're both baby faces, or both sort of baby faces, or whatever. I don't really know. And yeah, don't understand. Now Heather's kind of in this feud with Ash by Elegance, and yeah, that's okay, that's cool and whatnot. But it's like, well, you know, we need more things than this. And where's that Haley Hurley Hudson? How do you say her name? I think I think that's it. Who won the NXT, not the NXT, the Challenge or whatever it was. Um, I don't know. Hardly anywhere. Where's what's his name? Leon Slater. Like, he got a big win there over Khan on Explosion, and then hasn't been seen for a while. It's like this is the sort of stuff I mean. It's like, what are these guys doing? Where are they at? You know, and like even if somebody's injured, if somebody's filming a movie, we all know where Kelly Kelly is. She's filming a movie now. She's pregnant. Is she coming back? When? Like all that sort of stuff. Like have her do a quick interview and like put it on TV. Do these little things. Get their studio to sponsor the friggin' show. Like or whatever. These sorts of things. You need to have the audience understanding this is the situation. They shouldn't have to just look these things up or just continually scratch their heads and go, wow, I wonder where this person's at. Like, if you don't have them on there every single week, fair enough, because you can't fit everyone on every single week. That's fair enough. But if they're consistently not there, or people are going, oh, what happened to that person? They were there for a hot minute. Now, where are they at? It's like, you need to keep these people somewhat involved and somewhat relevant. I don't know, but yeah, it's one of those difficult things sometimes. I was talking about this now fairly recently that you know, sort of feels like, I don't know, Santino Marella isn't really a fixture of TNA. He's a fixture from WWE, kind of. And I kind of want to, like, I was talking about Facebook and things like that, that TNA needs its own corporate face. And I kind of feel like that's might be EY. I don't know. He probably doesn't really want to hang up the boots 100%, but I know he's slowing down, and he kind of understands that it's time to start thinking about, how do I put this to bed, and how do I, round myself out. I still want to compete at the top level, and I don't want to just, fall off or whatever. I want to keep going as much as I can, but, I know that this can't be forever. I'd like to see him as the GM rather than Santino. I think that he could be a good face for like the TNA in on its you know commissioner sort of style, whatever you want to do. He could do anything. He could do comedy. He could play the straight man, and it would be a TNA homegrown guy, managing and being passionate and able to do promos about TNA, and whatnot from that passion. Somebody that's been there since sort of day one. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. Sort of been there through thick and thin. Sort of an ambassador. Can cut good promos. Has knows how to be professional and do the job. Like, so I don't know. I kind of want to see that. I kind of think that would be cool role for him. Keep him on TV, keep him relevant. In some regards, in some ways, you can turn him heel at some point, maybe, if you really want to. I don't know, but still, you can do those sorts of things. But again, like, whoever, like we talked about who it was a while back, and I can't remember who it was, and I'm not going to look it up. But who is the corporate face of TNA? I've got no clue. Literally no clue. And I'm pretty sure no one has no clue who it is. WWE has Triple H, Nick Khan. AEW has Tony Khan. Like, before, it was like, yeah, we have Scott D'Amore, somebody who got the company, had a history there, had a great history in professional wrestling, and whatnot. We certainly need to keep moving forward, as I sort of said, with the vision of the future of TNA, but it also needs somebody out there as its face. You need to see this person, you need to hear from this person. They need to be doing interviews and doing media, and we need to know who it is and be able to, put a name to this face and see them actually out there and talking about TNA. Or it could be Josh Matthews. I don't know, but it's sort of like we don't see anyone specifically, and we don't see them consistently enough to sort of, have this identity of this person and say, okay, they're taking care of business and we know what they're doing, and we know the next, they're going to have a press conference about this and they're going to have a press conference about that and whatnot. They're going to field the professional questions or the whatnot, the reactions or the sort of discussion of the wider mainstream audience or whatever, so that people can understand this is the company, this is where we're heading, this is our goals, or what the company does to be different, and find its own identity, in today's modern world of wrestling. So I really feel like they need to figure that out and need to have that as well, as one big thing. But yeah, I know that that's not relating to this, but again, that's something that I feel like is one big thing, one big element besides, like, proper TV network, and distribution, or distribution, and besides, going live. um those are the things that I feel like, and maybe tightening things up, with, editing and things like that, and just saving time so that you can expose more things, um, to, the audience, and to the wrestlers as well. Like, like, you can only feature them so much. I think Danny Luna and Jody Threat have come a long way since they started, in TNA, and I think they're doing some great stuff. But it's like, well, I'd love to see more of that, but it's like never seems like they really get that, and it's like a little bit sad because they do deserve more. And it's like, well, they almost always just seem to get, here's the pre-show match or whatever, like that is, something good in some ways, because it's like, well, everyone who wants to tune in can see them for free, wherever they want to tune in. But like, and perhaps even buy the pay-per-view, whatever it is that's upcoming after that. But, you know, when you're actually featured on the show, it's like, well, you're much more of a draw for the show and for TNA and for the company and whatnot, and therefore in the future will be, thought of much higher. So, but it is one of those things. They've got to continue to do these bigger things and help build more stuff. So, yeah, that is where I'm at right now. I'm sure there's more matches. Hopefully this time I won't get sick, before I've just gotten over being sick. So surely I won't get sick twice in a row. But you never know. But still, yeah, I'm sure they will announce more matches next week and whatnot, and that sort of thing. I feel like maybe Jake something will have a match there, just since he's just turned heel and whatnot, that probably against Eric Young. Or I don't see him having a match against Steve Macklin. That doesn't make any sense to me, honestly, because Macklin's meant to be a heel, in my opinion, anyway. I don't even know why Macklin kind of came to EY's rescue and whatnot. That didn't really make much sense. Should have just had it be, the security and whatnot, that sort of thing. So I don't know, but yeah, it's a little bit annoying at times. So, sort of sometimes the story that you want to tell doesn't, fully make 100% sense or whatever, doesn't really suit a certain character coming out or whatever. But that's what you've decided to do. So I don't know, but yeah, it is what it is, or whatever. But still, like, you're going to continue in that direction, and you're going to see what you get from that. So I feel like, as I was sort of saying, like, it feels like EY's slowly fading into that role anyway. So it starts to feel like, there's not much, like obviously his legacy is there and it's sort of a little bit underwhelming in some ways because you'd always want to say, oh, well, there's a little bit more to it, add a little bit more to it just to make him feel like, yeah, he really was, this linchpin of TNA and whatnot, when he kind of really wasn't. He was just, one of the soldiers in the field that really helped, TNA and really worked hard there and tried to get over and tried to do his darndest to, feature himself alongside the likes of Sting and Kurt Angle and Christian Cage and Samoa Joe and AJ Styles and all these other guys that were there throughout the years and whatnot. So, but yeah, no, I don't know. There's some matches that you almost feel are obvious, but there are other matches that you just go, oh, well, I wonder what else is going to be on there. And then you start going, well, what are the pre-show matches going to be? And whatnot. So, certainly like we'll know the answers next week. And hopefully again, like I'll be able to do the post show and do a review as well. Because like really when you see the end of Victory Road, you're going to start going, okay, well, obviously they've got to start now building to Bound for Glory in October. And it does, like, a lot of people have asked for the Bound for Glory series to come back. I do kind of want to see that actually too, because I've never really watched it. But it's just one of those things that it's like, well, you know, where is this going? Like, so you've got to have more in there than just it's a series, of wrestling. All the matches have to revolve around certain wrestlers and certain stories that those wrestlers have as well. So, and there's obvious, sort of almost obvious winners, but almost as obvious not so much, because it's like, well, if somebody has a story and they're coming up against somebody else, it's like, well, they've already won so much. It's like, well, like this where this ends, this person squeaked by and squeaked by and squeaked by, barely squeaking by. This other person's had all these dominant wins and whatnot, and now they're going to go up against each other. So is the person going to, dominate again and just win, or is the other guy going to somehow squeak by? That's their story. That's a build to a match right there. Like, so a very simple one, but again, it is there. So, but yeah, we will see the obvious, well, sort of obvious build to Bound for Glory. I don't think Cody makes any real sense as being against Nick Nemeth unless Nemeth's heel. I don't feel like Hendry makes much sense at this point unless Nemeth's heel. I feel like I continue to think I want to see, as they promised, TNA to go back to England at some point. Maybe it's not this year, but at least next year at some point. So when that is, how that is, and as I said, how are you going to say, oh, well, we'll probably be going to England for Rebellion or whatever else it is, Hard to Kill, whatever it is. But after that, it's like, well, or it's like, well, why are you going to England, guys? It's not like your top guys from Scotland in England, definitely not, whatever. But yeah. And again, it's not like, oh, well, Joe Hendry seemed like he was like getting closer and closer to the main event and closer to being the guy. So not obvious that you're probably going to come to England to do it. So yeah, but anyway, those are my thoughts for now. Definitely be back again next week to wrap it up and see what else is announced. and see where we go from here when we do see what happens at Victory Road. So hope to see you guys then. Hope you've enjoyed this one and hope to catch you again in another one.